what should be the defining features of a 21st century classroom? And I saw in my first slide from your conversation yesterday, a lot of that conversation, how we assess, how we interact, how we collaborate. So when we think about what should that 21st century classroom look like, when Brian mentioned I was working in China, interesting working with a system that recognizes there's a huge push beginning in China to work on innovation and creativity, because the Chinese recognize that the new economy, as they're calling it, will depend on creativity and innovation, that they cannot continue to rely on underpaid factory workers to drive their economy. The economy will change. And in fact, how many of you remember, I think it was 2006, this PowerPoint went around, Shift Happens. Do you remember Shift Happens? I just pulled a few of these from Shift Happens. That, you know, we are working with kids who will be in jobs that don't even exist right now. How do we prepare kids to work in jobs that haven't been created? How do we work with kids to use technologies that weren't invented? For many of us in the room, when you started teaching, think of the technology that was available and the technology today. How is that transforming how kids will learn? And how about to solve problems that we don't even recognize as problems yet? So, you know, this kind of creates this sense that the future is uncertain. How do we work with kids? How do we create school environments that prepare kids for this future that's ill-defined? I would think about my parents' generation. It was much easier to say, we're going to get you ready for this job, which you will do for a lifetime. That's not the world we live in today. By the way, how many of you saw this? I think it was June, came out a report. 42% of Canadian jobs will be replaced through robotics in the next 20 years, right? That over 20 years, 42% of our jobs will be gone. Now, they'll be changed, but what do they look like? Just heard this morning driving down on CBC about the auto industry. Is the auto industry in trouble? And the economist who was speaking said, Canada's well positioned because the new jobs in the auto industry, as cars become much more complex, is you need to be able to problem solve, you need to be able to troubleshoot, and Canada has a stellar record of not having a lot of recalls in cars produced in Canada. Okay, that we've won more awards, despite having 13% of production, we win 1/3 of the quality awards in Canada. That's because our kids who grow up to work in those factories can troubleshoot. So as we think about how the workplace is shifting, how do we set them up? So I want to just come back to, and this is the conversation happening across not just Ontario, not just North America, but internationally. The core competencies everybody talks about, how do we nurture children so they're good critical thinkers, they engage in creative and innovative thinking, that they collaborate. We call those the 3 C's, that we need critical, creative, collaborative thinkers. More global in their thinking, and multiliterate. That writing reports and writing essays is not enough in a 21st century classroom. How do we engage in rich ways of communication and sharing learning? So I think to me, part of the good news is, sure, I don't know what jobs kids will be doing in 10 years. I do know the competencies they're going to need. I can build my program around that kind of flexibility that you'll be fine in a changing world, because we teach in a way that helps kids adapt to a changing world. And so again, we want to look at those intersections around the intellectual toolkit we want to build for kids to exist in that world.